The future of abortion rights in Indiana is now in the hands of the state's 5 Supreme Court justices. The court heard arguments Thursday in a lawsuit challenging Indiana's near-total abortion ban. Abortion care providers want the court to find that the Indiana Constitution's right to liberty includes a right to abortion. Some of the justices, including the newest, Derek Moulter, pushed back on that, wondering if such a ruling would be too broad.
Is there a point in the pregnancy, for example, where the General Assembly is allowed by our Constitution to take away the right to terminate a pregnancy if it's not necessary to protect the life or health of the woman?
The providers argue Indiana's previous law banning abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy would be acceptable. The justices pushed back against some of the state's arguments, too. Justice Christopher Goff focused on a part of the ban that forces abortion clinics to shut down entirely, not even allowed to perform abortions that would remain legal.
They're specialists in this particular service, and so if someone of limited means wanted to go and have access to a procedure to save her life, and she couldn't, isn't that problematic?
The court gave no timetable for its ruling. Well, we're joined now by Jennifer Drobak, a professor of law at the Indiana University Robert H. McKinney School of Law. Welcome to the show, Professor.
Thank you so much.
So those suing the state say the law violates the Liberty Clause in the state constitution. Is that a valid argument?
Yes, that's a valid argument, given that the Liberty Clause of the Indiana Constitution has been interpreted much more broadly than the Liberty Clause has recently been interpreted by the United States Supreme Court. So we will see if the Indiana Supreme Court continues with its broad interpretation of the liberty/privacy/autonomy clause of the Indiana Constitution.
So abortions have been allowed to continue in the state, but if the law is upheld, could there be criminal consequences for medical professionals?
Yes, those would kick back into effect. And so the decision by the Indiana Supreme Court is going to be really important, not only for doctors who practice in Indiana, but for their patients. And so if the stay is lifted, the law goes back into effect, and abortion, for all practical purposes, really, there are a few exceptions, but for all practical purposes, it will be illegal in Indiana.
There's also a concern the law could limit access to contraception. The FDA recently made abortion pills more readily available. So how will that factor into what's going on in the state?
Again, I hate to be slippery on this, but it's not really clear, because while the FDA has clarified that electronic access and access through mail is legal, Indiana has prohibited the practice of taking these pills when not in the presence of a licensed provider who is giving these pills under the strictest rules. So it's not really clear whether or not the rule in Indiana would be used, the law in Indiana would be used by the Attorney General's office to prosecute either doctors that prescribe them within Indiana, or whether it could reach to other states. Now, arguably, a doctor in another state who does telemedicine with someone here, it's just not clear what the legality of this is. It's also not clear how the law would be enforced. We want to have a situation where, for example, that you can use an IUD, but the IUD might interfere with an established pregnancy, in which case it's an abortion. However, IUDs have been commonly viewed as being contraceptive devices. So there are also pills like Plan B, which are intended to be contraceptive pills. But if used, they could also work as abortifacients. So the question is, since women are not supposed to be prosecuted if they are taking these drugs on their own, as they would be prescribed by a doctor, under this law, could they be prosecuted? I don't think so, but I wouldn't want to give legal advice to any woman in this state.
Yeah. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.